Hey everybody, I'm back to share on a topic that I'm going to call sexual neglect. So it just is a nice label for it. And, doing my consulting in Tantra and relationships and sexuality and communication skills and all that, this comes up quite a bit. So I feel like I'm just led to be a voice for this particular issue since, I'm going to actually call it like an epidemic, in the bedroom, which is not helping the masculine feminine healing process. So it seems to be showing up, as something that wants to be healed and to be given voice to. And I want to talk to the men and the women separately, but on this same video, because I'm going to be talking to you both very differently, different messages. So anyway, and I've talked about it before, but it still is coming up. So it's obviously wanting, more attention to address it so we can just bring this as a collective into a healing space and really get on with, better behavior and practices in the bedroom between men and women. So, what it is there's this, it almost seems like from what I'm gathering from my clients, that there almost seems to be like this norm of men thinking it's okay to leave the woman hanging, is how I kind of talk about it. I've experienced it myself too. And it almost seems like a lot of women almost have a wound about this, because it happens enough to where it's a problem. And it's where when you're with someone, the men are making, they usually come pretty easily as far as like orgasm, but they're leaving the woman without theirs. And I'm finding this almost really quite fascinating and interesting because it seems like a no-brainer to me, like logical, that if it's going to be sustainable, you both have to be able to, have your orgasm together. Otherwise, it's like, oh, okay, so he's eating off of my plate and I don't get anything because he's taken what he wants. And like, it's like almost like one person, would you leave one person eating while the other one hasn't had a meal at all? I mean, it's just strange to me. Like, you can't leave one person out of the sexual experience and have it be fulfilling for really for either party. I mean, I just don't really get why this is showing up so much, but I obviously there's some kind of norm out there where men have told themselves it's okay to leave her hanging. I don't really understand. It feels like there's almost like he's not wanting to be accountable sometimes. He's not wanting to see it. He's like rationalizing it like, "Oh, sometimes we we don't always come in each experience." And I'm like, if you were to tell a woman, hey, why don't you come over and I'll seduce you and then I'll get off using your body and then I'll just leave you hanging, how's that sound? Do you think any woman would go for that? Not unless she's desperate. So and yet this happens too much. So guys, what's up with that? That totally you're shooting yourself in the foot, and then you wonder why women don't feel safe, why they put up their guard when you're coming on to them, why they're slow to trust you, while they're slow to even be sexual with you. It's because these kind of things happen to women all the time, and the impression I'm getting, and I know I'm there, but with women now, is that we're just sick of it. It's like, if you're not going to stand up to the plate and give us ours too, then we're out and we don't need you, kind of thing. So women, there's also work to be done here too, because You obviously need to make it really clear verbally, and sometimes that still doesn't work. I mean, I've been so thorough in my communication around this, and then they still do it sometimes. So I'm just like, wow, you really are just either selfish, or you're not listening, or you don't give a shit, or I don't know. It just totally doesn't make sense to me. I'm actually so embarrassed whenever a guy does that. It's like, wow, you think that's okay? It is sexual neglect, which is a form of sexual abuse. You don't leave someone hanging. Now, if someone outwardly says, hey, you know, I'm not likely to reach orgasm tonight because of this, that, and the other, that's one thing. But you don't just leave someone hanging. And guys, you can't just use a woman's body to get off and then not make sure that she gets off. I mean, what's that all about? That's just totally not sustainable. And it makes women not trust men. It makes women lose respect in men. And it makes us not feel safe. And it makes us not want to continue. And it makes us want to look elsewhere for men who are maybe more tantric and know better. So anyway, women though, this is what I suggest to you. Be very communicative beforehand. And you know, it's always wise to have a sex talk before you engage with someone anyway. It's, you know, you talk about what turns you on, what turns you off, what do you really like, what's worked well for you in the past, what's a deal breaker, you know, that kind of stuff. And that's when you bring this up. And, you know, I've talked before about how more than half of women don't come during intercourse because it just doesn't rub the right spot. And you have to remind men of that because they always come unless they have an issue with that. In particular, they come pretty easily and it's not an issue. So they forget that we can't really get there that way without some external stimulation, which is either manually or orally or both. So you have to remind him and tell him, hey, listen, I don't come to orgasm through intercourse. It just doesn't reach the right spots, you know. So we need to do it beforehand, and you need to learn my body, and I'll guide you, and I'll, you know, say, yeah, that's the spot. Yeah, that feels really good, you know, and give him feedback. So you set him up for success. And because afterwards, if he does it after, he's not as present. And one thing that you really need for a woman to reach orgasm is strong presence and focus. And if you don't, and your mind's all over the place, guys, and you know, you're not really focused, she's going to be like, gosh, I don't know why, but I just can't get there. I just can't reach there. And it's usually because he's not focused and present. And, you know, it's hard for him to be that when he's just come and he wants to take a nap, right? So that's why she needs to go first. And then that's the gentlemanly thing to do, because otherwise it looks like, guys, you're putting yourselves first and then she's like an afterthought or something, and that's not, doesn't feel good. But women, you need to hold him to it and make sure that's the case, and, you know, stand up for yourself. And like, if he's doing it, be like, hey, you know, I haven't come yet, and, you know, we need to take care of this. And, you know, show him what to do. And but not to just be silent, not to pretend, and not to fake it, because it's not helping any of us. And I think it's time for women to really stand up and share about this, like, hey, this is not cool. That's actually sexual neglect, which is a form of sexual abuse, and it's gone on for way too long. And it's time for it to be exposed and healed and corrected. So that means both of us standing up to the plate. Men, you need to make sure your women come first or together with you as a preference. And secondly, women, you need to hold your men to it and communicate well and set them up for success. So anyway, just wanted to address that, because that is never okay to leave your partner hanging unless they agree to it, because there's a reason. Otherwise, you're just using that other person for your own vices and not taking care of them, so that they get theirs, and it's very lopsided and imbalanced, and it causes a lot of issues between the genders.